I'm Tony Sklar with bnetTV. We are here at the mHealth Summit in Washington, D.C. for 2012. I'm speaking with Nuance's Jonathon Dreyer. How are you today, sir?
Doing fantastic. How are you?
Not too bad. Thank you very much. Great conference. I mean, I love the mHealth arena. And, for all the people out there in bnetTV land, why don't you describe a little bit about Nuance's engine that it drives in this arena?
Yeah, so about a year and a half ago now, we had ventured into the cloud-based space with our technology. So for more than a decade in the healthcare setting, we've had our speech recognition technology and some of our other technology powering desktop EMR applications, other point-of-care documentation solutions in all different specialties. And then we've kind of transitioned to the cloud, as most companies have in the last year, 2 years. And we've taken our core technology, we've put that into our hosted environments, and now we can distribute that same technology, that same user experience across any mobile device, right? Tablet, smartphone, web-based applications. So it's broadening the availability of this technology on all those different form factors.
So that's, I mean, you're a pioneer in this in this space to begin with, not only just in speech recognition in total, but what makes not the only person within the ecosystem, but obviously one of the top tier ones. What makes Nuance better though than your competitors?
So again, we've been doing this for so long, right? From the ground up with all of this technology from the late '90s on, and in the last year and a half, I mean, I can speak to this much. We've had a real explosion in the adoption of the technology. I think we're seeing this a lot because, again, as we go down in device size, form factor, screen real estate, especially as you're talking about the mobile healthcare space for a provider market, it's increasingly valuable to have those alternate input methods, but not only also input methods, but also data retrieval as well. And we have, to date at this point, about 350 developers that have come in the program. A year ago, we launched internationally into other markets with 22 international languages supported on the platform. We launched our clinical language understanding technology, our SDKs, to do clinical fact extraction through all these different devices and platforms. So we really have this solid community of developers out there, whether they be developers developing for a company itself or these third-party development shops that are doing development work for these companies. We have many of them working with us and our technology. We're getting the feedback, we're providing the technology, and it's this really complementary cycle of advancing the technology in this space of the market.
I've had a chance to see the Nuance medical dictations in action, and it amazes me because, I mean, clearly there's some very big words in the medical industry that are not even just hard to spell, but hard to understand. So the fact that the dictation program understands it and gets it in there, but beyond that, let's talk about implementation, because I think that's really important. I can attest that the technology is fantastic, and others can as well, but how do we get more of it out there, and how does that inevitably happen?
So I think, again, if we restrict this specifically to the mHealth space, to the mobile healthcare space, we've seen in the last 2 years, just in general, the explosion of mobile healthcare applications. You're seeing a comfort level with the users. You're seeing applications that are able to do more than do simple viewing and consumption of information. So it's when you start to get into that space of creation of information on the go, and also more advanced workflows and workflows that are specific to what an individual user is looking to accomplish. I think you need that base application there that supports the clinician's workflow, right? If we're talking about a provider-focused app, you need that base application in place, and then you can layer on these what we call experience-enhancing technologies. And this is something we're going to talk about in the panel session this afternoon, about these different experience-enhancing technologies that are coming to the forefront that are really helping to reinvent and simplify that relationship between the clinician and the technology. So I think you need to have that base product in place, and then you can layer these incremental functionality components on top, and that really helps to continue to fuel the adoption of the technology.
So obviously compartmentalizing in any sense of technology is the best of breed, because you're adding in different modules, you can update different things without wiping out the entire platform from scratch, right? And that's usually when the majority of panic happens, when you do platform upgrades. So that part I understand, but so there obviously a lot of different devices, a lot of different technologies that are going on out here in the on the exhibit floor. A lot of them using Nuance's technologies.
Yeah, so most of the development work we've seen to date has been really on the provider focused applications. A lot of the applications I see out here today are patient, right, patient focused, and some of these have this mix where it's a hybrid. It's part for the patient, part for the physician. Right? There's some of these care management tools where there's a dual-facing aspect to the applications. So, in short, yes, there's a number of these companies that have integrated the technology. Again, I think we're starting to see more and more of that as more of these apps hit the patient interface, whether those be clinical research, clinical trial type applications, or these diabetes management, medication adherence applications. We're seeing more and more of those hit the market where there's a use for the technology, right? In an interface, it might be capturing that patient story, right? Whether that be from the physician themselves or the patient, depending on the workflow and the use case of it. But being able to support more of that natural interaction, I think all of these applications that are out here on the show floor are really trying to do that, is provide more of a natural experience with the technology to the user, whether it be a physician or a patient themselves. And I think, again, you see a number of these apps that are already taking advantage of it, and I think there's a number of applications that would really benefit from the technology as well.
Why is it important for companies like Nuance to be involved with the mHealth Summit, speaking and being a part of the community?
Yeah, I think it's really important to spread the word, right, about the availability of technology. I think a lot of us come across things that are out there, and we think, wow, this is really great and this is really helpful. For a number of reasons, from a workflow perspective, from an efficiency perspective, and I'm not saying specifically to our technology, a lot of technology out there. Even, I've seen a number of companies, I've come to this show in the past years, and this year, specifically at the show, I mean, it seems to be much greater than it's been in the past. And I've seen some of these companies that I think are first-time exhibitors here, and it's just really interesting technology that they have. So what I love about it is I'm excited to see these different vendors, these different solutions out here, and see how those can make a difference, right, in the care cycle. And that's how I feel about our technology, right? It's something that it's knowing and having the knowledge of what's available, and then how you apply it. And again, that growing community of developers we have is really, really critical here, because we're learning so much from them as much as they learn from us, and we're seeing the really slick applications of how they're leveraging the technology, and that's something that's pretty cool. It's pretty powerful.
It's impressive when it comes down to thinking about how much cost reduction and problem reduction can happen when ubiquity starts to flow. If I am a healthcare professional in an environment where I am dictating notes, and as opposed to handwriting notes onto a chart that can get misinterpreted, that can get missed altogether, where sometimes it might be difficult to actually, there's loss, there's blame being laid, there's all sorts of issues that go on with that. Having that sort of dictation in there and having that constant workflow, it's easy to transfer information between department to department. Oh, well, I got to call the records department. I don't have to call the records department anymore. Some big cost savings. Is that something that you're prepared to implement?
Yeah, that's huge. And one aspect that I didn't really touch on too much was we're very much known for speech recognition, right? Our speech recognition technology, and in the last few years too, we've morphed a lot of the technology to go beyond that. So not only are we capturing voice and turning that into text, but we're also able to structure that content. So another component that's available as part of our development platform is our clinical language understanding technology. It's essentially what we refer to, it's our NLP technology that does clinical fact extraction. So being able to scan the narrative text, allowing the physician to document naturally and capture the full patient story, preserve that patient story, have the engine actually scan the text and extract things like medications, allergies, social history, procedures, problems, diagnoses, etc. Being able to structure that content out. So not only are you eliminating those potential gaps in the process by using paper version of the technology, if you will, right? Using paper, or even using these platforms that allow for just the traditional dictation components. So being able to do it on the spot, get that full narrative, structure that out, and not get in the way of the physician, right? Again, that goes back to that whole relationship, trying to foster a really strong relationship with the user of these applications, and then take that information and use it for good on the back end, whatever that good may be, right? If it's patient, business, clinical good that can be extracted from that.
I feel a strong urge to talk about Star Trek a little bit, just because it is Obviously, it's something that is quite mainstream for people our age, and you can get a computer analysis and diagnostic to run through patient records and history on a moment's notice, right? Sort of cross-referencing a lot, as you said, a lot of different illnesses and drugs and different diagnoses, and come up with a forensics that is probably a little bit more spot on than the guessing games. No, I don't want to say guessing games, but for the guessing that inevitably went on.
Yeah, and we're working with a number of companies in the clinical content area, for example. So we're starting to see the connection of these different applications, different tools. So we've been talking a lot about the mobile EMRs, right? Those types of applications. But then you look at the clinical content providers, for example, and being able to leverage the data and leverage the technology from these other applications, and then layering an invoice to that as well. So you can imagine searching for a drug interaction or looking up some kind of diagnosis and being able to use voice. I mean, one of the first things you said was right, the long, complicated words, which is funny, is not as difficult when you have a medical language model and all the technology in place. It's more the clinical context, right? I use a perfect example of, we have users always say, well, why can't I use the consumer version of these products for my clinical use? And, outside of security aspects, HIPAA compliance, these other things with which the technologies are built on different platforms, it's really clinical formatting. I mean, humorous to a consumer is much different than humorous to a clinician. So you have to keep those things in context. But back to the long medical terminology, you have to say, could you imagine trying to type something like that into a mobile device, searching for it? Not only do most physicians say, yes, I know what the word is, but I don't necessarily know how to spell it correctly. This really cuts out that. So even for short instances where you may not be doing a lot of documentation or a lot of entry into a device, because of the nature of the market and the language and the lexicon that we work within, it's really critical to have those different components that get placed into the workflow where it makes sense.
I could sit here and talk for hours about, and I'm sure you can too, because of the passion that it's involved in. It's at a very exciting time. But I want to end off on one last note. What are some of the challenges that still exist in this area of the technology world, and what is Nuance doing to fix it?
Yeah, so I mean, I think there are a couple of clear challenges, right? I mean, I touched on one earlier. It's really the base product that we live within, right? Those products that we add that experience layer to. I think we've seen a lot of progress in the last couple months, last year even, where applications were originally, and I think most developers and most vendors in the market, there's that, where do we start? Do we go to iOS? Do we go to Android? Do we do an HTML5 app? Do we do this? Do we offer that? Do we not? Is it native? Is it hybrid? So you have all these questions at play, and I think the market's finally somewhat standardizing on where we're seeing a lot of the development work happen. So once you pick a platform or pick multiple platforms, you refine that experience out, right? And you build these right-sized solutions that really target the tasks you want. I mean, think about what you use in your consumer life, right? The applications that you go to day in and day out. Those types of things are really advancing, but there's still challenges there. In any environment, and most of the technology on the show floor is in a hosted environment. I mean, data connectivity is not a real issue in the general sense. I mean, the availability of wireless networks and Wi-Fi is pretty widespread. I mean, I can't say much for the show floor where the internet is abysmal, but I think that's the nature of 5,000.
That's the nature of all conventions.
Yeah. So but at any rate, I mean, I think you still have those. You have some of the network connectivity challenges. You have some of the user interface challenges, which again we're hoping to overcome with our technology, and it's just general acceptance of the technology within the market. Do we allow rogue devices onto our network at the hospital, or do we provide the physicians with the device? How do we maintain that? Are we going to allow multiple devices? So it's all those types of things, but I think the industry's somewhat starting to figure it out as a whole. And it's again, it was new a few years ago, and I don't think it's as new. Clearly, evidenced by what we're seeing here and the talks that are happening at the show, it's really starting to find its way in its place in the market. So.
Pretty nice. Jonathon, thanks very much for taking the opportunity to speak with us. I hope you get a chance for an update, talk about some of the challenges that did exist that we've already overcome. So that's great. Have a great time on your panel, and I hope we'll have a conversation again.
Great, thank you so much.
I've been speaking with Nuance's Jonathon Dreyer here at the mHealth Summit in Washington, D.C. for 2012. I'm Tony Sklar with bnetTV.